Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to part 2 of your 2.1 parallel lines and transversal notes. So here's the second half. You learned in the first half all the different types of angle relationships, and we also talked about some reminding of perpendiculars are 90, vertical angles are congruent, linear pair make a straight line, and then you guys filled out the sketch right at the end of that last set of notes. And so we saw in here vertical angles, and we saw ourselves using linear pairs here to determine those. And then we used the idea that we have that in the other parts of the pictures. So we saw those things repeated down here in this one. Same for the other diagram. So keep that in mind while we go through here. So we're going to first find all the measures in the diagram, and then we're going to fill in those sentences in that area. So using our idea of vertical angles, I can say that those two angles are 125 degrees. And then linear pairs, so my angles here and here are going to be a linear pair. And so I can take 180 and minus 125 from it. And I determine that these angles then are 55 degrees. And I can mark that with vertical angles. And then the same thing we see down here. So this is our parallel lines are occurring here. And we have our transversal that's cutting through it. So let's go ahead and look here. If two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then alternate interior angles are blank. So our two choices are congruent or supplements. So alternate interior angles would be like our angle here and here. And then we'd also see these two angles are alternate interior angles. So what do you notice about those two sets of angles? Well, those angles are congruent. So alternate interior angles are congruent. All right, then I'm just gonna get rid of those colors in there, hopefully without eliminating too much of my writing. Okay, so then we look at two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then alternate exterior angles. So here for alternate exterior, we're looking at the ones that are on opposite sides of the transversals and outside of my parallel lines. So we see those two, and then we see this set of them. So what do you notice between those two pairings? Well, those angles are also congruent. So not only are alternate interior angles congruent, alternate exterior angles are also congruent. All right, so we have two more relationships we're going to look at here. Two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then corresponding angles. Corresponding angles are the ones that are in the same position over the different parallel lines. So for example, here, and now if I pick up that top line and I lay it on the bottom one, this angle is corresponding to it. If I pick this angle here and pick it up, the one down here is going to be corresponding. Then I can see this angle here is corresponding to this angle down here. And then our angle here is corresponding to the angle here. So what do you notice about your corresponding angles? Well, those are also congruent. All right, and our last one says, two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then consecutive interior angles. So let me go ahead and eliminate those colorings. Consecutive interior angles. Consecutive means one right after the other, and then interior means on the inside. So these ones are like here and here. These are consecutive, they're next to each other, and they're interior, they're between my parallel lines. Okay, and you look the same over here, we see if these two angles are consecutive interior, they're inside the parallel lines, they're on the same side of the transversal, and these are actually going to be supplements. So 3 out of our 4 relationships end with congruent angles, and then we have consecutive interior are the only ones that end up with them being supplements. They add up to 180. All right, so we are going to use the knowledge that we just picked up on the previous part, and we're going to look at these diagrams and we're going to determine, well, what are the angle relationships between these two angles, and then can I find out what x is? So if I look here, and this is perfect, this is just like what we were looking at. These two angles are consecutive interior. they are both inside the parallel lines and on the same side. So because of consecutive interior, now go back and look up at the top. Consecutive interior, those are congruent or supplement, and they are supplements. So I can take 180 and minus 51 to find out what my x is. And that ends up being 124 degrees. All right, let's take a look at problem 6. These angles, I notice they are on opposite sides of my transversal, so they are alternate something, and they are outside of my parallel lines. So outside of my parallel lines, that makes these alternate exterior angles. If you look above, alternate exterior angles are congruent, and so I can just say x is 94. Number 7, here we look, these are both on the inside of my parallel lines, okay, and they are on opposite sides of my transversal. So these are alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles, if you look above, are those congruent or are those supplements? And those are congruent. So this time, I notice I have 2x plus 1. So I'm just going to set that whole thing equal to 105, and I'm going to go ahead and solve for x. So it's a two-step equation. Subtract 1 to both sides. So 2x equals 104. And 104 divided by 2, we end up with 52. Now here, the difference between problem 7 and problem 6 is 7, x is in this whole little expression here, whereas x is not on this side. So I can put a degree symbol with x on 6, but I wouldn't on 7 because it's part of an expression. All right, let's go ahead and turn to the back side of the paper. All right, so we have 3 more of them here. So if we look at problem 8, I see that 1 is on the inside and 1 is on the outside of my parallel lines. So it's not going to be interior or exterior angles. So really that leaves us with corresponding angles. And they are, if I pick this line up, this is going to line up exactly here. So these are corresponding angles. Okay, so corresponding angles, if you flip back, corresponding angles are congruent. So 3x minus 6 is equal to 81. Two-step equation here again. Go ahead and add 6 to both sides. So we get 3x equals 87. And go ahead and take 87 divided by 3. And we get 29. Again, here's a case where it's part of an expression, so I wouldn't put a degree symbol with it. Number 9, both of my angles are inside of my parallel lines. They are on opposite sides of my my transversal, so these are going to be alternate interior again. Alternate interior are equal, so 8x minus 15 is equal to 5x plus 3. This one takes a little bit more effort, but not much. Go ahead and subtract over 5x to both sides. So 3x minus 15 equals 3. I'm going to add 15 to both sides. So I get 3x equals 18. So 18 divided by 3 gives us 6. All right, problem 10. Problem 10 is a little bit different. It does not show us a set of parallel lines in a transversal outright, like all the other problems. They give it to us in a problem. But if I extend out my parallel lines, and I extend out this transversal that's going with both of those, now I can see it's very much like 8 and 9. They are both inside my parallel lines and they are on the same side of my transversal. So these are consecutive interior. Consecutive interior, remember, are supplementary. Okay, so I'm going to add them and set them equal to 180. 12x plus 4 plus 5x plus 6 equals 180. I'm going to combine like terms on the left side of my equal sign. So I get 17x plus 10 equals 180. Go ahead and subtract over that 10. So 17x equals 170. Take 170 and divide it by 17, and we end up with 10 here. Again, it's part of an expression, so we are not going to be putting it with a degree symbol. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's the end of our notes. Go ahead and make sure that you get your problem or your worksheet done. Thanks.